Job wants me to jump through hoops for PTO, quit instead. I gave my job a 3-week notice that I was quitting, and since I'm basically their only host I work basically every shift and it hasn't gone over well. They ask me to cover basically every shift I don't work, and when I don't they get an attitude. My last day was the 7th and I've been trying to get my 20 hours of PTO applied to my schedule, but for the first week they dodged the request, and now this week since they dodged me until the schedule was put out, it's out of their hands now that it's out. Yesterday they sent me around playing the blame game with every other manager, and finally I got to talk with our who basically said we can't really do anything. I left my uniform in my locker yesterday and sent a text to the brand new manager that just started that it was great to meet her but this whole thing has been ridiculous and that yesterday was my last day. No response, but because they didn't want to pay me my 20 hours of PTO they're losing 60 hours of me working and they have literally no other employee to fill, which means the managers will have to work. I work at a very expensive members-only club where it costs over 10k just for admittance, gotta love it. TLDR, fuck rich people. I develop software for those type of private clubs. I can attest to the fact that they are the cheapest buggers I've ever run across. Having high school students who started as summer job waiters waitresses promoted to general managers, controllers and head accountants. Turnover is insane. We're constantly retraining people to use the software. Our training support costs are insane. Most places I've worked for, if you put in a notice to quit, they will not use your PTO to fill in the time. But depending on what state you're in, they are required to pay it out. Sick leave not so much. Great part? They now legally have to pay out your PTO. I would have taken my PTO, then quit with no notice. I don't see why anyone feels bad doing that. It's a business, let them figure it out. They wouldn't give you 2 weeks notice to fire you. Those country clubs are such a fucking facade lol. I've done countless service calls at them and the hoops you jump through just to perform work there is absurd. Can't walk through the lobbies or regular areas, need approval to work in a space that members might be. It's a fucking joke. And there was one maintenance guy at one who was the head one and he really wanted to a part of that society. You could tell it affects his personal life. I felt bad for him trying to keep up with the Jones as head maintenance guy lol. Look up the Labor Department in your state and file a claim for unpaid hours. Don't even give notice. Fuck 'em all. I used to work in a restaurant that had a similarly entitled attitude. The feeling I remember is that they were using me up and would discard me like a used Kleenex the moment I inconvenienced them. Glad you got out, op. Hope you can find an oasis of humanity in the cesspool of American labor. I quit a part-time job over 2 hours of PTO. Fuck you, that's my money, end of argument. And same, new store manager was taking over. First and only time I met them was on their first day to turn in my uniform and explain why I was quitting. Obviously this wasn't the only thing that had happened. Later turned out I was one of the only employees that wasn't stealing. I did some contract work at a country club, once. I was astonished at the incredible penny pinching that these so-called rich people visited upon their employees. Haven't been back. They will be inconvenienced for 2 or 3 weeks, but they saved a ton by not having to pay out the PTO and not having to pay to fight a UI claim. Fuck the system that gives the rich W's even when they take an L. If you have a copy of the handbook or policies you signed, they have to have something in there that states how they manage PTO. If a company offers PTO and it is unused, generally they have to pay it out depending on your state. If whatever state has a PTO payout law, you can notify the labor board and they will investigate and audit. Source: HR manager over 2 companies. If PTO is accrued due to working, I'm pretty sure they have to pay you unless specified explicitly. Lesson learned. Use all PTO. Get paycheck for that period covered. Then 2-week notice. Shocked they didn't reply, but you still have to come in. Fuck rich people. Management should have to cover. It is their fault they were short-handed, to begin with, and their fault you quit because they were short-handed. They're losing. If you can't take PTO and they don't pay out PTO when you quit, you never had PTO. All of my previous employers have had a clause that they will back pay unused PTO if you leave with a proper notice. But if you quit on the spot you do not get the back pay on that unused PTO. I'm glad you got out, but you may have left money on the table with the way you exited. Although I can't blame you, I left an employer under very similar circumstances and didn't care that I lost the back pay. This is wage theft top. Rich people will go to insane measures to swindle pennies from people below them in any work hierarchy. It's insane. TLDR, fuck rich people. Sing it louder. Please tell me you work in California. Big time payday coming your way if they don't pay you your PTO. Other states have protections as well. What state do you work in? My last job I was at 17 years. The day I left, I was there for 15 minutes, got up and left, never to return. I have done this at every job I've been at. If I get treated poorly, my mental health is more important than my notice. They can go kick rocks. 3-week notice? I've only ever given 1 week and I usually no-show my last shift. Gave my boss a 2-day warning for taking a week off. Not even a word or anything. I just said I would have everything taken care of before I leave. Approved about 20 minutes after I put time in. One more example of why giving notice is a bad idea. Depending on your state or maybe even country, you have to be paid out for any PTO still on the books. In the US, you would file a claim with your state's Department of Labor if they don't pay. Amen. Fuck rich people. Oh, that last line. I also work in a high-value VIP kinda business and fuck these goddamn fucking rich people. Go to the Department of Labor, they will get your PTO. It's your money and have to pay it to you. I'm convinced that the richer a place is, the shittier they treat workers, because wealthy clientele consider looking at beaten down working class people a feature of the place. Every one of these places should burn to the ground. It has nothing to do with money and everything to do with power and status. Your problem is you showed some amount of independence and they needed to put you in your place. How else can they show you what is most important? That they are above you. May your grass be greener on the other side. A richie is the devil, though they never will admit it. I'ma take their money stack and stuff their face with it. They want slaves, not employees. Beautiful, fuck their prissy attitudes and mental illnesses. What they did was illegal. PTO is considered wages. Contact the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement in your state. If you earned the PTO, it is yours. Contact the Labor Department. Nice work. Look up local labor laws regarding PTO, then possibly contact an employment lawyer. Correct move. Getting hired is the only hoop anyone should have to jump through for PTO. Call your state labor board. 3 weeks is pretty generous. The way they've been treating you, they're lucky to get any notice at all. It is absolutely fucking nuts to me how managers don't want to work. You can only lead from the front. I'm not asking any of my team to do anything that I have room on my plate for, and I'll be damned if my work schedule isn't more packed than the people under me. Awesome and best of luck. Contact your local labor department. At my last job I expected to not pay me for PTO, so I took all my days before I gave notice. No hun, don't fuck the rich. They're terribly boring in bed. Eat their lunch. They owe you 20 hours, your labor board will enforce it. The management didn't reply because they knew that they had shite tossed at them. Even though you might not get your time off, you made them suffer from the lost shifts you left. So technically they lost more than you, and you got the last laugh against them. Drop basically from your vocabulary. Bro, just quit. 3-week notice is a courtesy. You don't have to. Just work until you get another job lined up and quit on the spot. Losing.